There is the Finance Minister, Jim Flaherty, finally beginning to deliver the budget. We're going to break away from that now, though, and give you some of the broad strokes of what's in this. As we explained, as always, Parliament Hill reporters get to look over the budget for about 8 hours in a lockup. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief, Jacques Bourbeau, was one of them, and he's just emerged from that lockup. Jacques, what can you tell us about this budget?
Well, Donna, here it is. This is Jim Flaherty's new budget, and it's called The Road to Balance. And guess what? There's a possibility that the federal government could arrive at that destination a bit earlier than planned.
When the recession hit, Ottawa primed the spending pumps, racking up deficits totaling $140 billion to keep Canadians working. Now, Finance Minister Jim Flaherty sees some light at the end of the fiscal tunnel. Because if there are no unexpected expenses this year, Ottawa will have balanced its books a year ahead of schedule. Although Flaherty insists it's more likely he'll run a deficit around $2.9 billion.
If you do the arithmetic, we could have had a budget that's balanced by $100,000 out of a $75 or $76 billion budget. I'd prefer to have a nice, clean surplus next year.
To make sure they hit their surplus targets, the Tories will squeeze more money from smokers, raising taxes on cigarettes, including duty-free smokes, by as much as $6 a carton. They're going to delay $3 billion in defence spending, and the Tories plan to save $7.4 billion by forcing retired federal civil servants to pay more of their health care costs.
It's all about building a fortress of additional revenues for 2015, some additional spending cuts for 2015, so that when they get there, they're assured of having that budget surplus, and they have some additional elbow room to give back to Canadians in a year that they'll be facing an election.
The Conservatives are spending money in this budget, but the investments are mostly modest. More than $300 million to help persons with disabilities, young people and older workers find jobs.
Well, we have some very serious problems in Canada. The labour market's not nearly as strong as it should be this far out of a recession. We have very stagnant growth. The federal government is in the best position of all the main actors in the economy to push back against stagnant growth in terms of driving job creation and driving wage growth, and they're simply not willing to do that.
To boost the economy, this budget promises to spend $1.5 billion over the next 10 years in university-based research and a $500 million shot in the arm to Canada's auto sector. There's more money for infrastructure, $1 billion, more than half of it heading to Montreal to fix crumbling bridges and build a new one. As well, more than $300 million to provide clean water on Aboriginal reserves, and $240 million will be spent to better protect communities from natural disasters. And the Conservatives are backtracking on some of their cuts, promising to spend $500 million to improve food inspection programs. And there's an extra $108 million to pay for more veterans' funerals.
And I think they're going to compare and contrast themselves to both the Liberals and the NDP, saying they're promising you all kinds of goodies, but they're going to tax you a lot more to pay for those goodies. We're going to give you less goodies, but we're going to put more money in your pocket.
For consumers, the budget also has some goodies, $305 million to expand high-speed internet in rural Canada, and a promise to crack down on cross-border price discrimination.
Now, as budgets go, this one is a bit thin, but just wait until next year, because Jim Flaherty is predicting a surplus of $6.4 billion. That means plenty of money for tax cuts and new spending programs. And guess what? That'll be just around the time of the next federal election. Just call it a coincidence, Donna.
Well, yes, we could call it a coincidence. Others think it perhaps would be more planned, but let's be diplomatic. Let's go on a high note, shall we, Jacques? You were in there for 8 hours looking over this document, talking to lots of the experts who were in there. Any big surprises that you saw, or is this pretty much what the government had telegraphed they were going to do?
Absolutely. They telegraphed pretty much every element of this budget. There were no surprises. And as I said, I found it to be a pretty thin document. In fact, it seemed that they almost were padding it out with small announcements just to make it the size it was. For example, they announced they were going to spend $4.4 million to hire 6 more judges in Alberta and Quebec. Quite frankly, the kinds of things you wouldn't normally see in a budget. That would just be normal spending by a government department. But I think it just reflects Jim Flaherty's plan, which is that he wants this to be a low-profile budget, not make much news, and wait for the big bang of next year.
All right.